We have so many things here that no one else has. So I wanted to change the perception of luxury as something that you can't just get anywhere else. This is the Harbor House Inn in Elk, California. We have a restaurant that carries 2 Michelin stars and a Michelin Green Star for our approach to sustainability. On site, we have 6 traditional rooms and 5 standalone cottages across 5 acres. Our nearby farm has 320 acres where the majority of our produce is sourced. Welcome, I'm Matthew Kammerer, the executive chef and director of the Harbor House Inn in Elk, California. We're about 3 hours north of San Francisco. Come on in. So we're in the main house on the property. This is the dining room. The main focal point of this room is definitely the view, the Pacific and Greenwood Cove. The first time I saw the view, I actually started laughing because it's probably one of the most unique views on the entire West Coast. It really started to take shape. Around 2016, I always wanted to have my own restaurant. I wanted a small inn somewhere remote near the ocean where I can grow food. And within that, my ethos started to take place. And that's the sustainability, the localism, and the one-of-a-kind experience. The dining space, it's all old growth redwood from the area. You kind of can see the super tight grain wood. In the late 1800s, redwood was discovered as the primary building material. For me, Harbor House is meant to be a singular experience where that's kind of our version of luxury, right? Something that you can only have here. In California, there's only about 5% of old growth redwoods left, and those are all protected. So being able to dine amongst redwood paneling with redwood tables that have all been naturally felled kind of adds to that singular experience. We're kind of like dining within history. And then the chairs that you see in here has this kind of like rustic elegance to it. Actually, replicas of one of the chairs that was left behind from the 50s. All the 2 top tables are 1 slab of old growth naturally felled redwood from about 45 minutes north of here. We're trying to bring in that rough outdoor elk environment. You know, you look outside, you see the sea stacks and it's kind of this rough thing. And then a plate shows up with that same aesthetic. So we're really encompassing the Mendocino Coast. I think a lot of people think about local. What is a local restaurant? The food part's actually easy. How do you bring the rest of that experience in? It's using pottery that's made 20 minutes north of here. You know, it's not throwing things out because they're chipped. When something's chipped, I actually find some beauty in that. All of our pottery is made by Cliff Glover and Sandy Ceramics. So this is the drawer with all our sakeware in there. During dinner service, we'll let the guests pick their own. So there's about 18 different ones. And I have a couple that I've made myself whenever I go to a table during service and I see they've selected both of mine. I always give them a nod of approval. So this is a table designed by Craig Hathaway, who is a local artist. And this piece was known as a sinker log. We didn't go out and cut down a tree to create this. It was actually in the bottom of Big River, which is about 5 minutes north of here. Throughout the day, the light will hit it differently and cast these different shadows, and it's always giving you a new experience. There's very similar ways that I approach the design of the restaurant to the design of the dinner menu. And those go hand in hand with just focusing on what we do have, not what we don't. So on the wall here, you'll see abalone shells, all red abalone, all from California. These giant barnacles on these ones. And then you have some shells that are perfectly untouched. Each one of these abalone shells is telling its own story. So our flower arrangements are done locally by Filigree Farm. We choose to have a dry arrangement for the winter instead of importing flowers from somewhere else in the world, so we always have fresh flowers. From the food to the service to the flowers, we're just telling the story of Mendocino County today. With the design intentions here of making it a community project, we've been able to be awarded different accolades like the Michelin Key, which highlights the architecture and interior design of Harbor House. Without all of the talented people around here, this wouldn't exist. It's about simplicity, directness, intention, but also showcasing your environment. All right, so we're in the study right now. During my travel to Japan, I stay in all different types of ryokans, which is a Japanese style inn. For me, the family style ones always leave the biggest impressions. Definitely the Japanese element has played a lot into my kind of design aesthetic and how I wanted Harbor House to feel. So our goal is to create an environment where guests feel comfortable, relaxed, and they're not going to question, hey, we want to play Battleship right now in this common area. They just totally feel at home, and that's what we want to create in this space. Behind me, we have a sea lily. It's about 180 million years old, and it's a carnivorous plant, which is now obviously extinct. Within this room and all throughout the property, really, you'll see all these different natural artifacts where if I'm in the woods or down in the cove, I see something interesting, I'll bring it back. I want guests to experience them because for me, this is more interesting than a purchased piece of art. You know, this is unique to here. So this is a red sea urchin, which after shucking it, we remove all the uni, and then you can boil this a couple times and all the spines will come out. If you hold it up to the light, right, you can see all the thousands of holes in it. And you realize that nature is actually the real artist here. Also, we have no TVs on property. We want you to get out of your room, go for a hike, go for a walk, and just experience what it's like to be here. As we kind of continued our sustainability journey, I wanted to look at our energy sources. And a couple years ago, we were able to move all of our daylight power to solar, and at night it switches over to geothermal. Our water's coming from different well sources behind us in the kind of the mountains of Elk. From the get-go, we always wanted to coexist with nature. Every decision that we've made is to kind of uphold that relationship. So we're gonna go into the Redwood room right now. For me, this room definitely has the most character. Only room in the house that is all clad in redwood still. It has an aroma of the redwood, so you're kind of getting this multi-sensory experience. It has this cozy element that kind of ties into that homey style of ryokan that I really enjoy. It's a work of art in its own right. So throughout the entire property, we try to limit plastic use as much as possible. And instead of importing plastic and then producing that waste, we use all glass refillable bottles, and those get filled as guests need them. We do the same in the kitchen. We don't have cling film, and the fact that we're not using deli containers limits that plastic that ends up in the landfill. So we're walking over to 4 cabins over here. We had these cypress trees and they were starting to encroach on the building. So we had to take them down, but we wanted to find a way to repurpose that. So there's a local woodworker named Rabani in town. So we had him carve some black trumpet mushrooms, which they're always a constant on the menu during the winter season. So bringing in the design element of Harbor House into the dining room again. We never really want Harbor House to dominate the landscape. We want it to immerse itself into it. So when we were coming up with all the footpaths and the overall layout of the backyard, we wanted the guests to be able to disperse throughout the property and kind of create their own little niches and not really be exposed, so they feel like they have this place to themselves. This is a marigold. We use this all throughout the menu. It has a really, really strong kind of citrusy, aromatic flavor and aroma, and definitely gets picked every day and finds its way into the menu. So as we move to the backyard, we have some of the garden beds that we originally built to kind of help sustain the kitchen's needs. We quickly, as we got busier, outgrew this area and transitioned down to the Point Arena farm, but the chefs are still in here harvesting and planting and kind of trying to understand what farming is as well. So they're in here turning the soil, planting new seeds, and being a part of the process.
I'm Amy Smith. I'm the farm manager here at the Harbor House Ranch. Sustainably growing for me means a focus on soil. So we want to be following a crop rotation. We want to make sure that we're not depleting nutrients. We want to be giving back to the soil. And I use drip tape because you can isolate where your water is going to help conserve water. We plant out starting in about July. And those things have enough time that they can put on growth so that come December, they're hitting peak. Sort of like a relay process where I come up with a crop plan and then it goes to Chef Matt and then he works his magic. Something is always maturing, peaking, being harvested throughout the year. So he's really able to go into the walk-in, see everything that's come from the farm that week and create a menu around that. I really appreciate seeing the full circle side of it and the passion that he brings to working with a quality ingredient, turning that into an exceptional course for the people who come and dine with us.
It's 5:30, dinner service is about to start. We have our first guest sitting right now. Tonight we have 12 courses. We have 9 savory and 3 dessert. Throughout the 4 different services that we have here, so breakfast, lunch, the main dinner, and then the in-room dining, we'll get in whole products, and that could be different versions of the vegetable from seed to root from the farm, or whole fish, which is coming with the tail, the collars, the heads, and then the main fillets. Each part of those products will find its home in a different part of the experience within Harbor House. So if guests come for 2 nights, they might have in-room dining the first night and see the fish collars, and the second night, the premier piece of that will show up in the tasting menu. We try to focus on utilizing the entire product throughout our experiences. We have 18 guests. We only make 18 portions. So at the end of the night, it's not like we're saving anything for tomorrow. There's no guesswork going into how much should we make, how many are we going to sell. We know exactly what everyone will be eating that night, and then we can prepare exactly how much we need. Water machine in the kitchen is kind of the lifeline of the property as a whole. It'll fill the water bottles that the guests drink in their rooms, but also it's the only water that we cook with, which saves on our carbon footprint at the end of the day. So dinner started right now. We try to operate in a silent kitchen. We'll try and have one person speaking and everyone will just listen and understand what their next movements are based on what course we're on. In the actual dining room, you'll see hand gestures. That will be a nonverbal source of communication so the team can understand what's happening on each table from across the room. Before you enter the dining room, we have a little mantra, which is be a swan. While we're in front of the guests, we want to look cool, calm, and collected, but underneath, if you see a swan, their feet are moving really fast. So mentally, you're doing multiple things, but you don't want to kind of display that to the guests. You want to look like you're kind of totally in control, know exactly what's going on, present yourself in an elegant way. Our version of luxury here, it's not just buying the most expensive thing. It's truly sourcing and creating a one-of-a-kind experience. By us doing it in a more sustainable way and looking after the nature that's here, we're able to preserve that for future generations. And tomorrow it's going to be a different form of luxury because our available options are different. Our goal is to continue to redefine what a luxury experience is.